most studios that are shooting 30 to 40 weddings a year, they would think that they would need at least to have a part-time studio manager, or that the owner of this business is going to be spending a substantial amount of time in booking and scheduling and planning and every one of these different aspects. You'd expect that to be a 500-hour a year job. What you've just laid out right now is you've taken all of that, and it sounds like we're getting to the wedding date with about 2 hours of time. So you're from the booking to the planning. And
I'd probably say about 3 hours, but yeah,
3 hours.
Yeah, that's about right.
So now it becomes very manageable. I mean, if you're saying you're doing 30 weddings a year, then that's less than 100 hours of your year. That's on average, maybe a couple hours a week that you're spending in this process to not only book, but then to plan and to have all of your touch points, which again, you have automated each of these different steps to give a really great kind of client experience as they go up to the wedding day, and providing a lot of really good value add. So that's incredible. So we're at, let's say, 3 hours per client now. The wedding day comes. This is obviously part of your special sauce. You're going to be there for the entire day, whatever that might be. Now, after the wedding, are you doing the editing, or are you doing the culling? How does that? Culling is the process of narrowing down to the images that you're going to keep. I'm curious now, is that in your hands or is that out of it?
So that is still in my hands. So, the wedding, like you said, I'm there pretty much all day. Some of my weddings are incredibly long because I do offer an unlimited package where if their day starts at 7 a.m. and goes till midnight, I'm there from 7 to midnight. So they can be very long days. But yeah, typically the next morning, I cull the images and I do as much editing as I want to till about noon that day. So around noon that next day is when I cut off. And I can cull very quickly. It's probably a sloppy cull. It's maybe not as clean as it could be. I'm not, checking every image at 1-to-1 or anything like that. I cull in grid mode within Lightroom, which I know a lot of people want to use Photo Mechanic, but I have found that I do a dual screen on my large monitor on the left. I do grid mode and I go as large grid mode as I can. So I'm seeing 3x2. So I'm seeing 6 images at any given time. And so rather than going image by image, I'm going 3 images at a time is how I do my culling. And then if I need to see it full sized on my right monitor, it's full size. So I can glance over and check sharpness or do whatever I need to. I can
just
typically
for reference, let me say that this culling that we're talking about is, let's say as a photographer, you're shooting, 5,000 images on this 12-hour wedding day. You're trimming those 5,000 images down from, all the rejected images, the images that shouldn't be in there, the ones that might be duplicates, the ones that might be too low of quality, bad expressions. The process of culling is eliminating all the junk to get down to maybe your 800 to 1,000 keepers. Yes.
Right.
So so how long would you say that culling process takes you?
I cull about 2,000 images an hour is what I do. So 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours.
Okay. So a few hours per, and then you said that you edit at that point. So you apply color and adjustments up until noon.
So yes. So the night before, when I get home from the wedding, I import all of my images. I get that going. I apply my basic edit. So my import edit is applied that night. Everything's culled into or is brought into Lightroom at 1-to-1. So I can go through it very quickly. And then the next morning I wake up and I cull and I edit just a few selected images. As I'm culling, I will flag images that catch my attention, that are unique, that might be something that a vendor would appreciate. And I will flag those as I am culling it down. And I promise my clients 50 photos per hour of shooting. So we're looking at about roughly 10% of my images is what I'm keeping. And I'm trying to select essentially the best 10 to 15% of those images. And I'll typically get that done by around 10 or 11. And that leaves me about an hour to go through to those flagged images and edit those. I do that because, so at noon when I'm done, I send it off to my editor and he handles everything else from that point. But those handful that I did edit, I send out to both the client and the vendor as a preview, as a sneak peek, as something that they can immediately throw up on social media. So I send it out to all of the vendors and to the client. Hey, here are 15 to it could be 15 to 100 images.
Got it.
I'll also, if there is a section of images that are very similar and that can be edited very quickly just by, adjusting the exposure and applying that to all of them, I will do that just because it saves me a little bit of money. My editor charges per image. So if I can edit 50 images in 2 minutes, I'm going to do that as well, just to save myself a little bit of money. But yeah, I will do all of that until about noon. And then I send it out to my editor. I send out an email to my client saying, it was so much fun. Here are a couple photos from your day. I'll send it out to the vendor saying, you guys did a great job. It was awesome working with you. I look forward to working with you again. Here's a few photos that you can use on social or do what you want with them. And then I'm done. And my editor handles the edits from that point on. And they typically take, depending on the time of year, during a busy time, they might take 2 weeks. During a slower time of the year, it might take 5 days or so to get those images back.
So at that point, let's exclude the hours of the wedding itself. The following morning, would you say that that's about 5 or 6 hours? How long is that editing and kind of sending off of those emails?
Yeah, probably about 5 hours. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So leading up to and after, so we have about 8 hours total per client in the leading up to, as well as the post on the editing side before it's handed off. And then you have the wedding itself, which might be between 8, 12, 14 hours. So let's average that to maybe 12-hour wedding days.
Sure.
20 hours.
We're in about 20-ish hours. Mm-hmm.
We're at 20 hours across 30 different events. We're at 600 hours a year, which is basically quarter time. It's not part-time, it's quarter time of your schedule. If you work a 2,000 hour, a typical 40-hour week is a 2,000 hour week, a year, then you're roughly used up maybe 12 hours of your week, essentially, of a 40-hour week. You've used up 600 of your 2,000 hours a year.
Yes. So when I get my images back from editing, this is probably an aspect of it that I could potentially cut out, but I don't want to yet. When I get the images back from editing, I still go through every single one by one. I create a duplicate black and white copy of every single image, and I review those, and I deliver roughly 60% in both black and white and in color. And then I review every single one and make maybe some minor tweaks. Okay. That process probably takes me another 2 to 3 hours, I would say. And then at that point I export and bring them up into the client's gallery. And then I blog 80% of my weddings. Now some of the blogs I push onto the website. Some of them are essentially just as previews for the clients or as just a bonus for the clients, but I will blog every single wedding, and I create a very simple highlights slideshow for them as well. So that probably takes another hour. So I'm probably into it another post getting it back from editing. I'm probably into it another 4 to 5-ish hours, I would say.
Okay.
But then at that point I send an email saying, so when I get them back from the editor, I send an email at that point to my clients that says, hey, we're almost done with your photos. It's time for you to schedule your premiere.